Welcome back to the Pixel Den, everyone. Seabass here.
Hey guys, how you doing?
And my man Dan over here. What's going on, Dan?
What is going on? It's been a week.
It's been a week.
It's been a week, but
I feel like
it's a
every
good
time
week,
we do
though.
one of these, it's been
always a week,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, the older you get, man, it's not like when we were kids, man, where all you had to care about is like looking forward to school and stuff like that. You got bills to pay, you got adult shit to do.
Get on my level, bro. Get on my level.
Especially with a little baby.
Oh, yeah.
They're all fun and games.
No one
until-
ever said that. Full of lies. Lies and deceit. But a lot of stuff happened this week. Actually, a lot. It's actually today, not to date the recording. A lot of stuff's getting released today. It's the first.
Yes.
It's a lot. You got.
What should we start with?
Well, I mean, we haven't even seen them, so we can it's safe
Yeah.
to say that we can, like, Lord of the Rings drops today.
Mm-hmm.
Rick and Morty drops this weekend. Even for the anime fans who listen to us, the new JoJo Part 2 comes out this weekend. So most of us will not be sleeping this weekend and watching a ton of stuff. I know this kind of dates the podcast a little bit, but it's worth mentioning. So, you know, there's some stuff I'm really looking forward to this weekend.
What's so interesting is, and folks, you don't know, but I'm actually the editor of all these episodes, so we record these in advance. You know, we're not doing it live, but the references that we do make are definitely dated. But you're gonna have to roll with us. Like we mentioned, the new Game of Thrones
we're not
is
recording
coming out,
live,
and
so
there's already been like 2 episodes of it already.
Are you up to date on the Game of Thrones stuff?
Yeah. So my initial thoughts, I'm digging it so far.
So am I. Very much so.
Back to formula, back to the basics.
See, I think they're breaking the formula, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, but when I mean by back to basics, I think what made the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones so good was, you know, it was about character development. It was about,
that whole show
It was about, you know, a Game of Thrones. It was about politics. It was about backstabbing. It was about all that. I think in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, it became more of a spectacle and like the...
I mean, it got TVified.
And, you know, you are my queen. Like, Jon Snow kept saying that to Daenerys. I wanted to, you know, stab myself. But it's more about... It's grounded, even though there's going to be a ton of dragons, I imagine, later in the seasons.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I've said this before, where with TV shows where they lose me is like season 4. Is because that's usually when they start introducing new characters to liven things up. The contracts are a little bit more heavier now, so like there's like, especially with Game of Thrones, there's no fear of like Jon Snow or Daenerys dying until the very end. Like it costs too much to keep so you're gonna use them as much as possible. So I think with most TV shows, season 4 to me, with any show, that's when they start breaking their character rules. You know, the personalities start to kind of change and just they all eventually wind up becoming kind of the same character. Yeah. Most shows, I mean, even the biggest shows hardly ever do that. I think like some of the exceptions would be, you know, like Mad Men and like Breaking Bad, where the whole point of those shows is the development of this one particular protagonist. Right. But like with Sopranos, great show, but towards the end, all the characters are pretty much the same.
They never evolved.
They tone down like Tony Soprano to the point where they make you like him more. They give you more reasons to like him when the whole point is like, no, he is a monster. Yeah. You know, that is not someone you're supposed to look up to. And that was the whole point of the show, is like, at least the initial Sopranos was the deglorification of mobsters in America. Because like, it's kind of something like, it's like our like Camelot. Like we have always like admired the Hollywood-esque version of the mafia.
Yeah, like Scorsese definitely made mainstream.
Some of the best movies in Americana is mob movies, you know? But I think when Sopranos came in, it was like, all right, we have to wake people up and explain to them that, no, these are not good people. These are not people you'd want to hang out with.
It's not to be glorified.
You're not supposed to be rooting for these people.
Right.
But towards the end of Sopranos, that happens where you feel bad, you know, what happens to Tony and what happens to all the characters. You're just like, what? No, like, this is their comeuppance. Like, you're supposed to be like, oh man, it's a really cool character, but you know what, he kind of deserved, like, sorry, spoilers for Sopranos that ended so long ago, he dies at the end, right? It's like, I think he dies really well. I know people don't like that ending.
The Fade to Black thing?
Yeah, the Fade to Black, I think
Get
was
some
great.
onion rings to a diner with his family?
I think that was a great way of ending the show.
I had initially thought that Meadow or someone was going to die even before
everyone talked about Meadow dying, but I mean, like, when he dies, it's like, everyone's like, well, first off, you know, people are not happy with the ending, but there's only like 5 shows ever that has ever had an ending where people are like, oh yeah, good.
Can't satisfy everyone.
Exactly, or anybody. I think big shows are doomed to fail when it comes to their endings.
I know. There's so much anticipation, so much expectation that you may satisfy a small group, but another group, pretty much everyone else is going to be like.
Speaking of shows that kind of lose me, one that actually kind of started to lose me in season 2 is, have you ever watched Russian Doll?
I have not. I have not been on that train.
Okay, so I won't like go too crazy into this one, but season 1 is amazing.
So I've heard.
The acting's great.
So why
the
have a
writing's
season
great.
2?
So season 2, I was actually really curious about. So it's a Groundhog's Day like scenario.
Which is why I'm so shocked that they did a second season of it.
Not the first time media with a Groundhog's Day have done sequels. One of my favorite Blumhouse movies is Happy Death Day.
Yeah, Happy Death Day.
But what I'm saying is Happy Death Day is not a... It's very clever because the sequel is essentially a time travel story.
Yeah, and you can get away with that in the movie sphere because it's 2 hours and it's a condensed story.
That was the thing that attracted me to Russian Doll, is that I'm like, all right, it's a Groundhog's Day show.
That's with Natasha Lyonne, right?
Yes. Yeah, and she's brilliant in it.
I've heard good things.
And so with that, what I liked was it's a TV show of Groundhog's Day. So it's like, okay, how are you going to pull that off? How do you make that interesting for 10 episodes?
And keep it going is what I've been curious
Keep
about.
it going, right? So the first season, since you haven't seen it, and this is part of your homework.
I got another homework assignment. We're going to talk about Odd Taxi.
We will
late in a few seconds.
But I think with...
I'm going to start giving you homework assignments and be like, yo, Dan, you're going to watch this. The problem with my homework assignments is that they're hour-long ones.
Yes.
And your schedule's a little different than mine.
Yes.
So obviously I can get to more stuff than you can.
Exactly. I'm getting on it. This podcast requires me to play.
The Bear is only half hour.
Well, here's the thing with The Bear is that's not a solo watch. I'm watching that with her, so we got to get to it. But what I was getting at is that Russian Doll season 1, and they do a brilliant job of keeping you engaged for 10 episodes on a Groundhog's Day story.
Right, because it's the same.
And the season
really
2
the same day.
Does the formula where it's time travel now.
So they ripped off of Happy
I don't
Death
think they ripped. I mean, it's sci-fi, so I mean, it's like, what else could you do with a Groundhog's Day? You can't do a season 2 of and then they're in another loop. No one's watching that.
No,
and it was. I think it was clever. I think it was a weaker season to the point where I would watch it, and there was one episode. I won't get into obviously detail, but there was one episode where I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This writing is horrible. This is like a stupid story. And then it at the very end it flips, and you're like, it's for people watching, it's the schizophrenic episode, and they'll know what that means, and it's brilliant. And then you're like, whoa, all right, that was really cool. But that was and then after that it peaked at the second episode, and then it just kind of dips.
So you've seen all of season 2 then?
Yeah, I finished it. Yeah.
Okay. So, and you thought that you had the twist, and then once that twist...
It wasn't really a twist. It was more just a aha moment.
After the aha moment, you thought the season was kind of like...
It had a couple good moments, but... You can tell
they couldn't build off that momentum.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think they also got, and I also think they got screwed because the production got paused because of COVID. So because that show blew up, and then they were like, "Yep, you're getting a second season," and then COVID happened, and then it's 3 years later.
So do you happen to know? And you don't have to answer if you don't know, if they changed showrunners from season 1 to season 2?
I don't think they did.
They didn't.
I don't think they did. But I think it was just so much. It was also a lot harder to like the main character in the second season with the dialogue and how she was acting. And I mean, it was great acting. It was just, I think it was just a weaker season. But the good thing with it though is Russian Doll season 1 ends. You don't need to watch season 2.
Okay.
That is one benefit of a Groundhog's Day thing, is that you can just stop and you're good.
And these are short episodes too, right?
Oh yeah, they're half hours. But I would, for your homework assignment, is to at least just watch season 1. Great soundtrack, great writing, a good watch.
Yeah, I've heard good things. It's just, I guess, as many shows do, it gets lost in the ethos of
I would put that on one of my top 20 shows.
We have other stuff to do. Yeah. But the homework assignment that you gave me last time we had this our lovely podcast was Odd Taxi, an anime show.
Yes.
Not sure how many listeners are anime fans. I've been a big one since I grew up with them. Actually, you and I bonded on a road trip.
Star, bro.
Yeah, Outlaw Star, man. Toonami for life.
Oh boy.
So I finished Odd Taxi last night. Now, folks, I cannot spoil the show for you.
So that's the trick with this show.
Yeah, because Dan and I were talking today, like, okay, we're going to talk about, obviously, Odd Taxi because it's my homework assignment. But when I finished it, I told him, this is, as Dan eloquently put it, it's going to be a touch review where we're going to be like, hey, this was a good blah, blah, blah.
It's going to be vague.
It's going to be super vague because... You had mentioned that the ending's really cool, and
it's cool. So it's not like a big twist moment or anything, but it's very much just. Oh,
and in the grand scheme of the show, And it's one of those shows where like everything is connected, everything happens because of this.
It's kind of like an opera ensemble where there's multiple. There's one protagonist, but like there's multiple stories going on.
You made the Pulp Fiction analogy.
It's very much
Tarantino-esque, which is
Pulp
I thought
Fiction.
was an apt
with story structure.
analogy. Yeah, exactly. And I loved it. It brought me back to those great animes we grew up with in the 90s.
There's very few of them now. I think it's because we're just older. And I think I said this before where I was like, I rewatched some of the, because I remember I was watching, there's a particular other podcast I was listening to, and it's an anime podcast, but it's more like a personality-driven podcast.
Mm-hmm.
They're called Trash Taste, and it's a bunch of just Europeans in Japan, and they're big otakus. They're big into like weeb culture and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But they're around our age. So it's like really reminiscent for them to just, and they never reference the stuff we grew up with. And I was like, why? Why don't they like refer to like, because the only thing they'll refer to is Cowboy Bebop as the GOAT, and that's it. But like nothing. And I know they've seen like the Gundam Wings, the Outlaw Stars, the Tenchi Muyos, like all
Batman,
those.
the animated series,
exactly,
is completely underrated as both of writing and the story.
Yeah, and what I was realizing was, I'm like, why the fuck are they not watching these shows? And then I rewatched Gundam Wing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that fucking show growing up, and I'm like, I had such like the nostalgia was carrying me through that show, and then at the end of it, I'm like, this is not a good show. Now I totally get it because it doesn't age well. So the new group of like anime fans
that makes sense.
Aren't like, they don't have the attachment to like Toonami like we did growing up. They didn't have that, and then when they go back to watch it, they're like, oh, I hear like all these millennials talking about this show. Let's watch it, and we're like, this is horse shit.
Yeah.
I get it. So
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned dated references because as I was watching Odd Taxi, I had initially thought I didn't research anything. You told me not to.
Yeah,
you were like, shut up.
Yeah.
Don't Google. No. I'm like, okay, Dan. So in the initial moments of the show, I thought this was like from the 90s, late 90s,
really?
early 2000s.
Oh no, it's a modern show.
And then they got into like themes of online dating, mobile games,
the gotcha game thing. It's like, really, it was very postmodern,
super modern. Really, and then after like 2 episodes, like, when did this come out? It came out last year.
Yeah. So
this makes total sense because I thought it was super modern. And I was like, I thought this is set in like the 90s or something.
The thing with anime now, it's not like what it was when we were young watching it. They have seasons like they do with any TV shows, but they come out with so much now that so when we were watching anime, like, you always got the 2 seasons and maybe a movie, right? You got the 26 episodes, the 24, 26 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Now they get a shorter season release, and then it might be 2 years before season 2, if it even comes out. So there's so much volume now. It's not like before when our generation, when we were getting into it, everything was a banger. Everything was just, everything.
You had DBZ seasons throughout.
You had DBZ, Evangelion, you had Cowboy Bebop, Outlaw Star, Samurai Champloo, like, just to name a couple. Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, Appleseed. You had all these shows that were coming out, and they were just fucking rock stars every time. Now, there's just rarely anything that comes out that everyone uniformly. Right now, the big ones was Odd Taxi. When that came out, everyone was like, now we're talking. The new one is like Spy X Family, and there's like a couple others, but those are like the big ones right now. But when Odd Taxi, I rarely watch an anime series now because I think I'm just aging out of the demographic for it. Sure. And there's rarely anything that I want to watch because, once again, we came at like, it's like movie critics in the 80s and 90s, like, not liking anything because they grew up in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, it's a generational
You know what I mean?
thing.
Like, they're watching some of the best movies that ever come out.
Yeah.
The guy who watched Casablanca the first time and then jumps over to Philadelphia is like, yeah, Philadelphia's okay.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, how we'll look back on the superhero era.
Exactly. That's our era now. But it's so when Odd Taxi came out, everyone's like, okay, return to form. This is the stuff our generation got into. This is solid writing. Animation's good. The music slaps. Everything is just solid. That's why when I was like, if there's any anime, you got to watch this soon, because I know it's few and far between when you watch something new. When it comes to anime. But I know you're also open to it. Like, you're not.
That's the thing too. Like, so
you'll watch anything.
As I was watching this show,
that dialogue is so good.
The dialogue is so good. So you have to get over the fact that these are talking animals, right?
And it's not that hard to do.
Yeah. So because as I was watching the show, I was like, this dialogue's fucking great, man. Like, but I'm hearing this from a goddamn walrus and a gorilla and
the gorilla's a doctor. The walrus is a cabbie.
Cab driver.
He's an Uber
His
driver.
best friend is a monkey, a white monkey. And like all these like different animals out there. Like,
but like
horses,
you got
cats.
You got the K-pop the J-pop bands. Like
they're all cats.
The
They're all
idols.
cats.
You have the idols are all cats. Like,
oh my god! And so like if you can buy into that weirdness of it, you will thoroughly enjoy the show. Because it's excellent dialogue, it's excellent story structure. It's
written for adults. Like that's a show that
adults,
the writer who wrote, like the who came up with the dialogue for that show that's not easy to do. Like Quentin Tarantino, I know people give him a lot of shade, but it's very hard to write dialogue. Period. It's almost impossible to write dialogue as if it's real. So that is, and I don't have to tell you this.
Not only that, multiple storylines.
Yeah, multiple storylines that all hit
that
make
connect
sense,
to each other,
that aren't shitty, but like
extremely difficult.
I find dialogue some of the hardest to write.
Yeah.
And I'm a hobbyist. I do not consider myself professional on any level, and I never will. But I'm a hobbyist, and I always find dialogue to be impossible.
Authentic.
George Lucas is a prime example of that. He can't write dialogue to save his life.
I don't like sand.
But damn,
it's
he
coarse.
he can come up with a goddamn good story. So it's even harder to make dialogue.
Yeah.
But it's almost impossible to make dialogue as if it's two people sitting around on a table. And that's where Quentin Tarantino always like made it perfect, because like the conversations.
Just look at the opening scene of Reservoir Dogs. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a real conversation.
Yeah.
If you were to just like pluck that out and throw it at any diner in America, someone is having that conversation.
Yeah.
But that's impossible to just write, to come up with.
That's what
from one point of view, from one writer to write that. So for one person to do it for all of Odd Taxi.
Yeah. It'll initially start feeling like a taxi cab confessional type vibe, but it grows and expands from that idea.
I thought that hits on some real topics, that show, because there's a whole episode dedicated to gotcha game addiction. Mm-hmm. Now that's a real thing. I don't know how far you know about that, but whales and all that's a major problem.
It is a dark path, and
go look on Twitch.
Even though the show displayed it in a somewhat silly way,
comical way,
it was dark,
but it's not far off to these
dark.
people.
It's super dark. You get into the rabbit hole of that, man.
It's just as bad as any degenerate gambler.
Yeah, and
it just shows you like their progression to this kid, how he was always like he had a proclivity to this type of like metric, and so I thought that was brilliant.
And they brought back the old school like narration.
Yes,
I feel like there's two groups of people in terms of like movie watching with narration. You either love it and are into it in the film noir sense of it, or you're like, don't tell me the story, show me the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought the narration was held in an engaging way.
Love narration.
Yeah, in an engaging way where maybe if you're not a fan of narration, you'll like it in this show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I think the visuals and I think the story that they give, it's clever. I thought it was clever. The gotcha game.
The gotcha game. The mobster
narration.
who only speaks in rap battles.
Oh
and like,
my god!
I know to the viewer, to our listeners who are like, "What the fuck are they?"
Yeah, man.
About?
No, they're gonna watch it. They're gonna watch it.
This is why it's hard to. This is not a review. This is why I needed you to see this, because a buddy of mine who also he's more up to date than I am. I heard about this show from the Trash Taste podcast that I was listening to. And one of the guys was like, "Yeah, it didn't win Anime of the Year from Crunchyroll, but it fucking should have." And I'm like, "All right, let me try this." Like, and I'm like, I'm a sucker for animals, so I was like, "All right, I can get into like talking to animals and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that." And then
it took me a while to buy into that concept.
To me, I was right into that, but I get why.
I'll be honest, it was a little off-putting in the beginning because the dialogue was so great that you match it with the coming from a walrus talking to a kitten, and you're like, huh?
You're like, what the fuck am I watching?
Buy into it.
If you jump in with it, you're golden.
Yeah.
But then they sold me as like, oh yeah, it's essentially watching Quentin Tarantino if he did like a full anime series.
And that makes sense after watching the series.
Yeah. Right? It does.
It makes a lot of sense. I thought it was great. I'm curious. This is probably not a spoiler. Season 2?
So there might be one, but everyone says, how do you go to a season 2 with this? But then again,
it's open-ended.
How do you do a season 2 with a Groundhog's Day episode?
Yeah.
So if people want it, they'll make it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But I dug it. I recommend it to all the listeners out here. Even if you're not into anime, again, you get past the threshold of talking animals, you will engage that story.
I like, this is a show that I would recommend to people who, if you like Quentin Tarantino dialogue, you can kind of sell the show to anybody. You know, anime fans are going to watch this regardless.
And it touches on like real topics, which I appreciate. It touches on like loneliness, friendship. Don't judge a book by its cover. Mm-hmm. I thought a lot of characters, you thought they were one-dimensional. They turned out to be.
Yeah, like his best friend, I thought was the most annoying character, and then you're like, oh boy. There's something real with this dude.
Even the quote-unquote gangster monkey
kind
of said some deep stuff later in the season. I'm like, damn, man, I thought you were just a common thug or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's great.
No,
So
that's
part of
that's
that's
the
part
part
of
of it.
what draw me to it is like these characters actually developed and they were interesting all throughout, not just like in the beginning
Yeah.
or like or towards the end. They were throughout interesting. But yeah, Odd Taxi, check it out. Good rec, Dan. Maybe one day you'll watch one of my recommendations, but it's
I'm getting to it, bro. Listen, I was a productive podcaster this week. I caught up on so much shit. But yeah, so
lay it on me. What you?
I got you. But definitely your next homework assignment should
Russian
be
Doll
Russian Doll.
season 1?
Just season 1. You don't have to do
How
season 2.
many episodes season 1?
I think it's like 10. But
Okay,
they're 30 minutes
I can knock
long.
it down
They're
in 2
quick,
nights,
and it's
2
like
nights.
it's really easy to watch her acting, just because she's in every scene pretty much. So her acting's amazing, and
Yeah, I love
you
her. I
know,
love her,
it's
actually,
just
yeah.
it's really entertaining to watch her because if you
Like
get
most
her,
people think of her as just like the girl from American Pie, the
Yeah.
cool girl from American Pie, but no, she's actually
no, she's a brilliant actor and
charismatic.
very charismatic, and like her dialogue and just she's funny. It's really easy to watch her act for 10 episodes.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
But what else did I watch? So the Game of Thrones we're caught up on the two episodes.
yeah, and
so
we like it
far.
so far. That's
I'm
the
liking it.
consensus.
I like that it's different.
And you know, going back to your topic on like how seasons are going too long up to somewhere like season 4, have you noticed that they're time jumping pretty
yeah,
fast
that's
now?
what I loved. I think they realized they know.
I don't know
that fucks that show.
Yeah, so maybe they go 3-4 seasons max.
Yeah, because it already it got renewed for a season 2 immediately.
Yeah. I mean, when you have the
so-
biggest premiere ever, and
Oh, yeah, they're
you kind of have the
immediately.
green light to see second
Well, I like
season.
that they didn't just do what usually like sequel or prequel shows do is they just take the same type of characters and put new fresh skins on them.
Yeah.
So like there's no Tyrion, like there's no sarcastic cool dude.
Yeah.
You know,
Damien's a little bit like that, but I think
kinda.
But I think
but
Damien,
not to the scale.
not to the scale of Tyrion.
But like even to like the main protagonists, like they're okay. But like that's what I love. You don't fall in love with them right away. You know, like their quote unquote Ned Stark is not a Ned Stark. Like it's very. And then I also love that they kind of just threw out the long dragged out storytelling that the show was known for, because I think they realized that fucking bit them in the ass later on.
no, I think they're learning.
Because when you
got
got to start getting that story
Mm-hmm.
moving, you know, because there are times when you like listen, you are a writer, so you know you can drag out a chapter forever, but eventually your reader is like get to the fucking point.
Yeah.
You know, and that was what with Game of Thrones, and it's a double-edged sword because you have a group of the fan base. Half the fan base is like, no, keep it going. I'll take 1,000 episodes. But then you get people like me who is, all right, we're up to season 8. Can we just get her to the fucking continent? How really? She's the queen of the deserts. Can we just? She has a whole continent. She can't build a boat. Like, come on. Like, let's get this going. Like, I want to see this already. You can only drag it out for so long.
Yeah, no.
And I like that this is not doing that. Like,
No,
they jump 6 months.
I
in
think
one
in
episode.
today's landscape, they
don't have the patience for
They
it.
don't have the patience for
Yeah.
it, so they gotta throw it like this to
So
keep the viewers
I
engaged.
was really happy that they did that.
So yeah, so that's good. All right, what else have you watched?
What else? You haven't seen it. I know it's a little dated now, but I finally got my hands on Top Gun 2. So I am.
So what is the? Because the hype apparently is legit from a lot of people about this movie.
Okay, so this is where I get fucked. So I watched the first. Now Top Gun, the first one, it's a fun action movie. It's pretty much like an American recruiting video. Let's be honest. You know,
I think that's what it was intended to.
I mean, it's fine. Listen, it's a Tom Cruise action movie. I will watch them forever.
It was Michael Bay before Michael Bay.
Exactly.
With recruitment.
Season 2, Top Gun 2. I was like, my brother blows me up. He's like, you gotta watch this greatest fucking thing. I'm like, all right, here we go. So I finally will sit down and watch it. And I'm watching it. I'm like, all right, it's got the callback with the soundtracks and like the flybys and all this other shit. And I'm like, okay, here we go. All right. And I'm watching it. And all right, so like the main story of it is not broken at all, but it's essentially
He's like an instructor now, right?
well, so because you're gonna watch it no matter what. So
Yeah.
essentially, I think, and I'm not the only one. I think Honest Trailers did the same thing. Their main mission is the fucking trench run of Star Wars. I shit you not. You'll watch, and that's as far as I'm going with it. But literally, the Death Star trench run.
Mm-hmm.
That.
Yeah.
That's literally their main mission. But that's as far as I'll go with that. And so I watched the movie. The aerial combat scenes are amazing.
Yeah. I've heard the cinematography
And to the point where I watched it the first time and I was like, okay, it's cool. Yeah, it's more Top Gun. But I was thinking about it after I finished the movie. Like the next day, I kept thinking about the aerial combat scenes. And that's when I know a movie got me.
Yeah.
Is when I'm thinking about it the next day. There was one movie that did this to me and Sam. It was called, I think, what was it called?
Recent movie?
Yeah.
It's not Tenet, is it?
No.
Because we talked about that already.
Okay, so this was the movie I was referring to. So when I refer to movies about, like, when I'm thinking about it the next day, that's when I know it's a solid movie.
Right.
It doesn't always have to happen, but if there's a movie where I'm kind of like lukewarm with, and then like the next day I'm thinking about the movie at all, that's when I know there's something in that movie that I got to go back to rewatch, because there's something in telling me. And the first movie that this kind of hit me with was Joseph Gordon-Levitt's first like directorial debut, Don John. Bear with me here.
What?
Hang on.
That was not the movie I was expecting you to say that.
This all comes together. Trust me. So I'm watching that with Sam.
Okay.
Right. We watch it, and we both we watched the whole thing. It wasn't a bad movie. You know, there's some funny parts, but here was like there was a couple funny parts, and I was like, all right. And me and Sam both had the same. We're like, all right, that's fine, whatever. And I remember the next day I kept thinking about that movie, the story that they were trying to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to Sam and explaining it, like saying the same thing, and she was like, I've been thinking the same thing all day, because it's actually a brilliant story.
Remind me.
Okay, so it's essentially like a bro. Right.
I know
like
it's a
the
bro.
Queens County bro dude. Scarlett Johansson, who is this.
But then he goes.
Hang on. Yeah. So that's the story. Is that like he's like this bro. He's an immature, always like one night hookup kind of thing.
I remember the Julianne Moore parts in college and stuff.
And it's
like
a really clever story. And then like he's dating, Scarlett Johansson, who's essentially the female version of him.
Yeah.
And then it's really just him growing up. It's a story about just
maturing, yeah.
It's a coming of age story, but a coming of age story for someone in their 20s, not a 16-year-old kid going through high school. This is someone who's out of school already.
Already an adult, yeah.
He's an adult, but not really. And the writing's really clever. And I remember thinking, like, now granted, do I think it wins an Oscar? No. But I watched it, I was like, okay, it was all right. There was some great, there's good actors in it. But then it like
interesting.
And then I'm like, so I rewatched it, and then I started catching all the nuances, and I'm like, oh, there's like he was really trying to tell something here. Like this wasn't just, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, his first director. He makes Scarlett Johansson his girlfriend. Like, no, he's really telling like because there are no coming of tale stories for men in their 20s. Name one. There's a few for like young women.
For high schoolers too.
There's a ton for high schoolers.
John Hughes.
I mean, every John Hughes movie. But like then there's some like darker stories of like young women coming into their own and realizing the situations they're in. But there's very few for guys. For 25, 26-year-old men, there's very few movies about, hey man, it's time to grow up.
What about Alfie?
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
but so my roundabout on this is that Top Gun did that too, because I watched the first movie, and then for the couple days later I was thinking about the movie. I'm like, why the fuck am I thinking about Top Gun, right? And then I rewatched like the aerial combat scenes, and I was like, oh, this is goddamn brilliant. Like, not the story. The story's okay. What I liked is that it's a return to form to summer blockbusters.
I think
it was refreshing.
Some movies are going back to that formula.
Yes, and it was refreshing that it wasn't stupid. The movie doesn't get dumb.
Right.
Like, it doesn't have him fighting aliens or becoming president or, like, saving the president's life. Like, it doesn't go.
We all know you hate Tomorrow War. It's been established.
It was a horrible movie. But, because that's where, like, these big movies are going. Like, it's always like, all right, so the sequel, it's like, it's Maverick versus Al-Qaeda again. It's like, or he, like, he saves the president's life, or his mission now to pilot Air Force One. It's like always like this.
Cheesy,
this,
over
like,
the top.
it keeps it contained.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Well, that's the thing with Tom Cruise movies and his Mission Impossible movies too. They don't become more than they are. Like,
yes.
It's a spy thriller. Mm-hmm. Mission Impossible, and the sci-fi action movies that he did, like Oblivion was one. Mm-hmm. I remember I watched Oblivion.
That was a little rough.
And like all those movies, they don't make themselves out to be more than they are.
And that's why it's like a Tom Cruise movie, so you know what you're getting. And then I was like, but the aerial combat scenes were awesome, and there was some really good like acting, and it was just really good. And I was like, this is why people love this movie, is because people are starving for a real summer action movie.
Yeah.
Top Gun does it. Like, there are other movies that have done it.
That isn't a superhero movie.
Yeah, people are done with superhero movies, and I think Disney and Warner Brothers have fucking realized that, and they're like, oh boy, we're fine.
Yet they keep churning out all these movies and series.
I think people have when it comes to movies, it's not the same mentality that they have with TV shows. So TV shows, people will put up with anything. There's a reason why Law and Order has, like, Law and Order SVU has like 30 seasons.
100 billion seasons.
Like, they have an absurd amount of seasons, but eventually you don't get like 20 movies of one particular subject unless it's a superhero movie. I think people's patience in the movie realm is shorter, and the fatigue is a lot higher
For movies, yeah.
for movies.
Yeah.
Because like
That
there could
makes
be
sense.
certain like because like when one movie.
Patience too, yeah. Fatigue, patience. All
Yeah, because
that,
it's like you're going into a movie, you're expecting 2.5 hours of a story. TV shows, I'm expecting to put in 10 hours.
Yep.
And I know that.
Yep.
But with movies, so when one movie gets really big, you always see 2 or 3 movies after, like from different studios, similar, not story, but like if like when Lord of the Rings like blew up, then there was tons of fantasy-based novel
Right afterwards, yeah.
that came out that no one really ever talks about. Same thing with sci-fi.
Yeah, they're trying to replicate the magic of the initial success.
Yeah, people are like, all right, boom, this is hitting right now, so we got to bang this out.
Yeah, that's why every action movie is trying to emulate John Wick now because of that popularity, the same type of style, action sequences and whatnot. Yeah, they're just trying to recreate it. But I agree with you. It's like people just want that little nostalgic feeling of
Just a
like,
little bit.
Of a simple enough story, and you would argue that Top Gun has a simple enough story. to follow.
It's like America
Like A
good,
to B.
American good, bad guy in jet. You can't see face, you kill him.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. So
You
like
know, you have the great cheer at the very end, and you feel good.
you have,
and
like it has a soundtrack, it
Yep.
has the actors,
it hits the beats. Yeah, and
know.
that's what I want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah,
But I
that-
think people are really hungry for it. I think
I
that was
know.
proof that people are just
it's something
hungry for
different
this.
than these superhero movies and remakes, you know.
Yeah.
Wait, oh well, this is like a sequel.
Well, it's a sequel. It's actually a full-fledged sequel. It's not
Yeah.
even a. It's definitely not a remake at all, and it's definitely a continuation. Very much like what Blade Runner did, where it's like they like, all right, it's been 20 years, so let's tell a story 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Like let's not just it's been a year since the big fight. Like it's So I thought that was really clever. But I also saw, and I don't even know why I watched this movie.
because you like movies.
I think it's like I saw. Oh yeah, I mean that's too. But I watched Vengeance,
that is the BJ Novak,
the BJ Novak podcast movie.
podcast movie, yeah, with Issa Rae. I love Issa Rae. I think Sam has watched Insecure. I don't know if you watch everything.
She has watched Insecure, yeah.
I love that show. I think it's one of the better writings. We're talking about authenticity in dialogue. Issa Rae.
She said the same
Issa
thing about the
Rae
same show.
is a brilliant writer. Shout out to Issa Rae. And so what do you think of it then?
So
Worth watching?
it's okay. So it's in that category of it's definitely not bad.
But-
He's got some. BJ Novak can fucking write. I like his comedy.
I'm pretty sure he wrote some of The Office episodes.
He was a
if not
main
two.
writer for
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
I think it was slightly like a one watch, one off.
Okay.
Like
So what is it? Is it a crime,
It's a-
comedy thriller, crime
so
comedy?
so essentially it's a
Shibbidi-dibbidi?
dark comedy.
A dark comedy.
It's a
okay.
dark dramedy.
A dark dramedy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, the quick 30-second pitch of it. First off, the first 10 minutes is hysterical. It's literally these two guys. It's BJ Novak and John Mayer, and they're just at a party.
Wait, John Mayer, as in John Mayer, the musician?
The famous guitarist,
Oh
him.
my God.
But he's like, it's a quick cameo, but it's clever. So it's about essentially they're on their phones at a party and they're just talking about how they're like they're big in hookup culture. They're just talking about how it's great and like how they're trying to justify hookup culture, but
Yeah.
BJ Novak writes it in a way that it's very real because I know those conversations, but it's also like it's a satire. They keep they keep saying 100% and to the point where even like people who are in that world are like, come on, like he's like, oh yeah, hooking up with every girl. I'm just I couldn't possibly once I know your sister's name, like it's over, and they're like 100%, and it's like and it's like but it's really clever. And then it's like he hooks up with a girl and like he forgets her name, but it's all like apps, they're just swiping,
Yeah.
and essentially like he gets a phone call, like a girl he was hooking up with dies. But like she's from like a Texas old school family, and they call him because they think they're dating, not realizing it's a hookup. And he kind of gets guilted tripped into going to the funeral, and he's like the brother's freaking out. He's like, all right, I'll go down there, and then it just snowballs.
Okay.
But then he meets his family, and then he's like, oh, and he's also he's a writer. And he's like trying, his big thing is ironically to come up with a podcast idea. Right? He's trying to find the next Serial. He's trying to be the next one of that.
Yeah.
And he meets his family and they're really unique. And he's like, you know what? This is like a good pitch. And so he decides to stay.
Gets more for a story. Yeah.
And it goes on from there. It's definitely not a bad movie. I would recommend it to anyone who likes if you like dark comedies, dry humor. This is definitely that. Because it's not making fun of Southern culture. It's not. It's trying to kind of humanize it a little bit.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
it's like a yuppie coming down to the South, right? But he's not making fun of their like the culture or the lifestyles down there. It's just kind of like and it's him coming to realization of the life and all that other stuff. You know, it hits it's like by the numbers, like comedic writer gets a shot to write a movie, to kind of write and direct a movie. This is what he comes up with.
Yeah.
Not bad. Not like, it's kind of like was it Cromana or something? It's like it's a very similar type. Ed Harris was in it.
Ed Harris?
Yeah. It's a
Snowpiercer.
No.
I love that movie though.
Not a fan.
What?
Not a fan.
I loved that. We're talking about the Chris Evans one, yes?
Yes, we're talking about the Chris Evans one.
All right.
Everyone loves
agree to
it.
disagree.
That's why I'm just not even going down that crazy lane. What the hell was the name of this movie? It was like I think it was like a Netflix movie. And Harris was like an aging photographer, and like his like
Chromata?
I think I'm getting it. I definitely got the title wrong. Oh God, I can't pronounce it. Kodachroma is the movie.
Kodachroma.
It was a Netflix drama, and it was essentially Jason Sudeikis is in it, and it's essentially like one of these like kind of just, it's a road trip, you know, father and son hate each other, road trip, you know, and then by the end of the road trip they learn to appreciate each other, blah 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 blah, you know. It's like, but it's very much in that vibe of just like, it's a drama, it's a comedy drama, there's some funny parts, it's just the whole thing, and you know. And they're trying to tell you, you know, there's a lesson here, but unfortunately, sadly, this is a movie that'll get lost on the DVD shelf. You know, it's like something where you're gonna watch it. You know, people who watch it know, but it's not gonna blow up.
Where is this on? What streaming service?
I don't think it actually is on streaming services.
Oh,
I think, or maybe, it's not. It's theater only.
Theater only. Okay.
But it is clever. If you like BJ Novak stuff, it's a decent watch. I didn't hate my life watching it. I was interested in the entire time, but it was like a one-off. Like,
what's the last movie excluding Tomorrow World? Dan's most hated movie. What's the last movie?
Most hated movie. It's fucking up there. I'll tell you that.
But what's a movie that like you saw start to end and was like, why did I just waste 2 hours of that?
Oh shit.
I'm trying to think here.
Well, let me pull up my systems here. Okay, let me pull up my list here. But I know there's
there's definitely one I saw recently too that I'm like
you made it to the end, like. Because I'm not gonna lie, I'll dead movies if I'm not into them. Like
I know you. We talked about this in a previous.
I know,
episode.
like the most recent Harry Potter movie, not the Dumbledore one, but the second.
The Fantastic.
I watched that with Sam, and I was like, fucking hate my life the whole time.
Yeah.
Movies where I watched the whole like this. I mean, like we're like excluding sequels. Like the sequel to like 300, it's not good. You know, it's like
not at all.
A movie that I watched.
Ava Green tries her best to save that movie, but
she does. But boy, she can't. You know, even she can't.
She can't save it.
Ad Astra, I remember being a movie that I was like really disappointed.
Really? I haven't seen that yet.
It's that Brad Pitt sci-fi. It was like really trying really hard, and it was not really.
Oh, I remember. I know which one. I think it's called like Underwater. It's with Kristen Stewart.
Oh, that's the deep movie, right? Like they're like oil miners and like the
and like
it's like the abyss,
quote
but
unquote,
like
Chult
horror.
is the monster that's under.
Oh, right. You mean Cthulhu?
Yeah, Cthulhu.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, it's like essentially like the movie.
I thought
Abyss,
that movie was going in a different direction that it ended up being, and I was like, bleh.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like most recent movie where there's not many. I mean,
recently. Yeah, I'm trying to think of another movie.
I'm trying to think of. I mean, Black Widow was one of them, but I only really watched that because it's like, all right, I'll watch
Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson and tight dresses.
And actually, they were not even the tight dresses part, but it was just, it's actually, they were really good in it.
I know, I know. It's like, what are they doing in this crappy Marvel movie?
Yeah, it's like, you know, that's a Disney money, bro.
Disney money.
Trying to think of like nothing recent.
Oh, totally off topic, but apparently there's some drama.
I've been following that.
Don't Worry, Darlings.
Because it's a shame. I really want to see that movie.
I didn't even know that Shia LaBeouf was supposed to play.
I knew that a while.
You did?
Yeah, I knew that a while ago. That was like because they announced
it. Yeah, a lot of drama there. You guys just check on Twitter.
It was like weird. Yeah, it's like she kind of went out and said like, oh, you know, it's.
Yeah,
like we had
there were reports
for the safety of Florence Pugh, we got rid of Shia LaBeouf. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Shia LaBeouf comes with receipts, as the kids say these days.
Yeah, and then like Florence Pugh is like, yo, wait a minute, you mean you had problems? Like, you know, so it was like very like, why even like.
And the movie hasn't even come out yet.
The thing is, like the movie was like look, it's solid. People want to see it. It looks good. Like it's, but
Hell hath no fury. I did see Shia LaBeouf in one of the podcasts I do listen to is The Real Ones with Johnny Berthal, Shane from Walking Dead. He has his own podcast.
Yeah.
I love it because like he interviews these people and he gets
He's
down
an
to
actor's actor. Like
yeah,
people,
he gets down to the dirty details. He doesn't hold back, and the one with Shia LaBeouf is actually pretty good. Shia LaBeouf, he recognizes he's
he knows
abuser
he's like
and
rough.
he's an
Like I'm not
asshole,
saying he's like a like
and
I
he
would never
hurt
want
women. So
I'm not saying I want to deal with that guy.
Yeah.
But I like he's very self-aware in a weird way.
he's very introspective, which I got from the podcast interview.
That's what sobriety will do to you.
Yeah, I mean, because he definitely had his moments even before he.
Well, I think he
started
gets
hitting
like
women.
screwed in a certain way with the public because he grew up with Disney movies, Holes, The Greatest Game,
Classic child actor.
Transformers. But it's like yeah, he was that, but he's also like a different type of actor that people are not comfortable with associating with him. You know what I mean? Because he's
Right.
very much into modern art and performance and just like all when he was going out of his mind on the internet doing like the just do it videos. But it's like the point is like people did not want that from him, and I think people who people tend to just forget that that their characters are not them, that they're actually people and that they're playing characters.
That's a hard time doing. Yeah.
And it's like a parasocial relationship. It's like where it's one-sided and they only get it.
Yeah, I think
from
we
one
talk
side.
about this with like Twitch and like
you
watching
get that
streamers.
with like YouTubers and streamers.
Yeah, you get that parasocial relationship. Like, oh, I'm watching my buddy today,
and
it's
it's like
they're not your buddies.
Yeah, and it's like it's hard not to it's hard to prevent that from happening to
especially
yourself.
if you watch them continuously.
Yeah, especially lockdown showed a lot of people because people got into sort of following a lot of people.
Get lonely, man. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I mean, it's like, but yeah. So I think like with like Shia LaBeouf, I think people are like just so used to him in like these types of movies and like being like, oh, no, if he's in these kind of movies, he's obviously like this type of personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, no, he's actually like a psycho. You know what I mean? He's
a bit crazy.
And it's.
I think he definitely has acting talent. I can't deny that.
No, he is a brilliant actor.
Yes, but obviously he has demons in him. He's a human being.
You can be good at your job and still be an asshole.
Still be an asshole.
Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, he just came out with Fire and Desire against Olivia Wilde, and
it was like weird because like she kind of threw shots at him, and then he's like, "What are you talking about?" And then Florence Pugh's like,
and then he actually went to I think it was Variety too. And like emailed Variety, be like, because I think Variety had interviewed Olivia Wilde. She said those things about like firing him or whatever. And then he caught wind of it and emailed Variety with like, I have these text messages. I have this video. I don't know if you've seen the video.
No.
That's
I have a surface level of it. Like it came out on my Google
That's
News
the disturbing part because in the video, Olivia Wilde basically.
It's like asking, like, no, you like trying
like let's make this happen.
But I also
let's
like
give a
to play devil's advocate. And you know this. That's someone who's got money in the game trying to fucking course correct the situation where it's like I can't just have my fucking lead actor that the world knows is doing it just walk off.
Yeah.
So she's trying to fix it. So I mean,
yeah.
Is that like is she really being genuine in that point? Like begging? No, she's got a fucking $100 million behind this project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bet your ass you don't want the main because the word gets out that your fucking lead actor walks from a movie.
Yeah.
Like, your movie's fucked.
She isn't because she's a female director.
Yes.
Already she's in a disadvantage.
So people got her in the crosshairs.
Yeah,
they want her to
fail. They want her to fail. Yeah. And, she's trying to do this big movie with big stars and already issues are coming out. We'll see because the movie does look interesting.
Sounds like they were trying to like not just her but her team and like the situation was trying to like catch a narrative, like prevent a narrative from forming by creating a different one, and then it just got out of control.
Exactly. I think you put it like they tried to stop something from growing, but it actually made it worse from the narrative they pushed. Yeah, that's totally what it was.
And again, these are actors. I don't feel bad for people who own boats and airplanes.
Nope. Nope. I mean, if Florence Pugh, who's single now, wants to have dinner, I'd take her out to dinner. But what are we talking about?
I'm walking away from that comment at all.
Anyway, okay.
So you can just sit and pretend to live in that world where you think Florence Pugh is in your sphere when you're playing your Fortnite, okay?
Listen, New York's a big city. One night,
Not gonna... You can dream that while playing PlayStation, okay? You can dream that.
Whatever, Dan, okay? Just keep shooting shots, just keep shooting shots.
Speaking of that, so what are you playing right
now? So I played a little Overwatch.
You went back to that? Really?
I went back to it because, I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
I get it.
So, this is a Pixel Dank podcast, and the one thing we haven't talked about yet is video games, the poster boy of Pixels. And I wanted to talk about video games because video games are very different than what we grew up with, right? Like they're essentially
There's 4 controllers now. Hot take.
no, I'm talking about the storytelling, Dan. The storytelling in video games. Because like what's your history with video games? What was the first where you started out in PC, Super Nintendo?
Oh, no. First one
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis.
would be my brother when he got a Sega. Absolutely.
Sega Genesis.
Yeah, my sister got a Game Boy. I remember it was one of my earliest memories as a kid.
Game
was my
Boys
sister
too.
getting a Game Boy.
Yeah.
And then I remember sitting next to my brother while he would play Sonic, and I would watch him play. Yeah.
It's funny when you have a sibling, because I got into video games via my older brother.
Yeah.
Because he first got that big console, and then I would, back to gaming.
You hold the controller.
You hold the controller. Maybe you play and try to beat a level that he couldn't beat, or you try and play your own save file or whatever. Like it's the sibling like passing down of video game knowledge. What's so funny now is like I'm the video game guy now, and he doesn't play video games anymore.
Right.
It's
Same with mine.
as it tends to be.
My oldest brother is not. My middle brother, he kind of like once in a blue moon, but he's like 2 generations behind. Like it's like he just aged out of it.
Yeah. No, but I was we had Super Nintendo, we had Sega Genesis.
I didn't have any of the Nintendo stuff. My best friend did. He had everything.
Yeah.
But I didn't get into.
And that was the thing too. Like you went to your buddy's house.
Yeah, you just sat on the couch and we played games. I mean, that was like the story.
NBA
it was like,
Jam, I remember for me.
Oh my God, that fucking cabinet. I probably put my entire college tuition behind that. I remember being young and I had my brother's hand-me-down console, which was Sega Genesis. I had the games, and then my best friend, he had that was the one thing he was into. So he had the Sega and Super Nintendo, and him and his little brother would just sit in front of the TV forever and just burn through these games.
What type of games did you play? I mostly was mostly sports, action adventure games, like the Alien game for Sega Genesis. I remember playing the Jurassic Park game.
Oh, that was the Jurassic Park game. Was one of the Jurassic Park game for Sega was like one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
I was a big Sonic guy. I was big into side scrollers.
Deion Sanders primetime NFL for me.
It was NHL. I played a lot of NHL, and then it was kind of like a lull period with games. Then I remember one of my best Christmases, to be cliche here, was the year I got a Nintendo 64.
And that was a classic console.
And I didn't get it launch year. I got it like a year or two later. All my crews had it. The entire crew had their own. I didn't. Yeah, and I remember that was I got that for Christmas, and that blew my goddamn mind.
Yeah.
But more importantly, there was one game I really wanted, which was Star Wars Rogue Squadron. It was the only, I wanted that game, and you couldn't fucking find it anywhere. And my brother bought it for me for Christmas, and I remember I think he played that game more than I did. He borrowed it, and that was the end of that. Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars video games have had a let's call it a checkered.
Actually, no. I think there's more good than bad in the Star Wars.
You think so?
Absolutely. Some of the best games of their genres are wind up being Star Wars games.
Interesting.
One of the best RPGs ever made is Knights of the Old Republic for Xbox or the PC.
Which they're remaking.
Got paused. It sounds like it's in development hell, so it may never come out.
Jesus.
Yeah, it sucks.
So I guess they're putting their eggs in the Fallen Order.
You have Rogue Squadron, which is a great. Then you have X-Wing, these are all great flight simulator shooters. The Jedi Outcast games are great action adventure, platforming, 3D platforming, Star Wars games. Pod Racers, one of the best racing games.
What about Star Wars Battlefront?
Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 are amazing. The newest one is a little janky as fuck and kind of lame, but I still played a hell of a lot of it. And not just Star Wars games. I mean, but I think I really came into was a PlayStation. Yeah. My brother.
PlayStation was
that's when I had Nintendo 64, you did the GoldenEye thing. Everyone, our generation just lived by that. Mario Kart, the ones that are Mario Party, but PlayStation is really where it took off for me. I remember I was at my best friend's cousin's house for the week. It was one of those summer, summer vacation. And I would just literally just spend weeks at their house, just wouldn't come home. And they were really big into Final Fantasy VII. And I had never played any of the Final Fantasies.
That was my first one too.
And I remember they had burned through it, and then the summer after that came out, I was there at their house, and I was kind of bored, we're just sitting around doing nothing, and I was like, hey man, because he had Final Fantasy VII just there, and I'm like, oh, what was is Final Fantasy VII good? And he's like, it's my favorite one. I'm like, all right, I'll start it. So I'm just sitting there, and I spent the entire day at his house playing Final Fantasy VII, and they were all into it. They played it a dozen times. They're so psyched that I'm now playing it, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't have, and this is what killed me, didn't have a memory card in the PlayStation. So I just lost all whole
burned
day. Yeah,
that
a whole
one
day.
sit day.
And I remember I didn't even own it. So I came home that night and I remember specifically this, looking online to where I can get a copy of Final Fantasy VII. I needed a Final Fantasy VII. I needed a memory card. I needed all this. And I remember I pooled all the little money I had and I got a copy of it. And I think my whole summer just disappeared playing Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And that's where like RPGs for me,
Same.
like world like opened up because I remember watching people play them. Like I'm like, so you just stand and you just take turns fighting? Like that looks stupid. Like I was like, all right, give me a fighting game, give me a racing game, give me like these.
Yeah.
And then I played Final Fantasy VII. I'm like, holy shit! Like my world just blew the fuck open. Like and I was like, okay, now let's find other
The gateway
RPGs,
games,
and
so
it was
to
like
speak.
RPGs became like a big thing for me, and then. What was it? Then I didn't really jump into the PlayStation 2 when that came out. My school gave me a laptop. So just FYI, I am dyslexic, but severely. It's not a sad story, but I didn't really learn to read until the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember the school gave me a computer with a program. It was a very expensive program at the time, but essentially it was autocorrect. Right? It's modern autocorrect. They had this whole big software, and I was allowed to bring my computer to school. But it was really fucking heavy because it's the early 2000s, and those laptops were bricks.
Laptops were like freaking like
Everything.
briefcases, pretty much.
Essentially, and they weighed like 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And I remember, so I stopped bringing it to school, but I had it, and that's where I learned how I had a real like passion for computers. My dad always had a computer and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So, and we were poor. Very poor, so I couldn't afford console and I couldn't afford video games. But I found out how to download computer games. Then like my middle school crew, they were all into computer games, StarCraft, Diablo, all those like Blizzard games, and I'm like, all right. So I started playing PC games because they also because you could just make a copy at the time of like a computer game.
Mm-hmm.
And my crappy little laptop, we were playing Counter-Strike, and then they gave me copies of like Half-Life and like all these like tentpole games, like these titan of video games at the now like they were, this is Half-Life, you'll like it. Oh, this is a mod, Counter-Strike. This is before you could even buy Counter, like it was just a free mod. So I just play computer games. And then they showed me how you can, if you get internet connection, you can play online with your friends. And I remember I would spend my weekends at my dad's house. So, and when you're in middle school, that kind of is lame because you want to spend your weekend with your friends, with your crew, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing I was always grateful for is that they all played video games. So they all played StarCraft online together. So I could play with them online.
Yeah.
And this is like with dial-up.
And this is like what year is this?
Oh, shit. This is like 2002.
2002?
2003.
Okay.
StarCraft is old too at this point.
Yeah.
But it was still like a huge game. But I remember we would all just play online together. And I remember just that sense of just not being alone. Because I was also a lonely kid. Like I had a couple friends, I had a crew, but like I didn't. My siblings are much older.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
what gets lost in the toxicity of online gameplay.
Yeah,
It's like you can hang out with you.
and like it was my school friends, and we were all playing StarCraft, and we would play till dawn. Like none of us would log out. We would just all play. And I remember I was at my dad's house, and he never cared that I sat on the computer.
was not what it used to be.
No, it's not. And I remember like specifically like it was great because like my dad didn't care that no one called him. Like I could just be, I was lonely, so I could just be on the computer all day, and he didn't care.
And I haven't seen you rage game personally since I've known you.
What do you mean by rage game?
You're like, you don't play well, or you're like, you miss your target.
Oh,
like,
I've never been that guy.
Yeah, you don't take me as one. Me on the other hand.
Full disclosure, it has happened, but it's it's Bloodborne. It's like a Souls game. Like that brings out a beast in me.
The Soul games will bring out the worst in anyone.
But usually I'm usually not a rager or even like a super cocky person when I win.
Yeah.
That's not me, but so like
you could play these games till dawn and you wouldn't cause a ruckus.
No.
Exactly,
I wouldn't. I wasn't a problem kid, so I would just be. And I think he was just more happy that I was entertained. He didn't have to do anything.
He didn't have to do that.
But like that was like the best part was like, all right, cool. I'm alone at my dad's house. Like all my friends, and like where my dad lived, there was no other like people my age. It was all 55 and older. So there was like, it wasn't like, oh, I have my dad's, like the friends in my dad's neighborhood and my friends in my mom's neighborhood. Like, it was like, I remember always feeling left out, but they always played online games. And then also happened like my best friend was like addicted to video games. So it was like, we were just always talking about it, playing it. He always he was just as broke as me, but like he had 2 incomes, not one. So he always had the newest games. And like they were so good at the games. It was cool. And they were always super generous and let me borrow the games. So I go this like they were the first ones. Like if like I got like a console, he would be the first one to get me a game for it as like on a birthday gift. So it was that kind of stuff. And so it was. I would get really into like big RPGs, and I'm a big strategy person. That's when I remember I found I love Diablo, but then I discovered Age of Empires because PC Gamer, when they used to actually have magazines,
those were the days.
The perk of getting a subscription was they would come with demo discs.
I remember that.
So PlayStation had the same thing, but the PC one, you'd get a list of just demos, and I remember one of them had Age of Empires 2, and I remember and I'm a history guy, like that's just
like hits everything
you could think of started like clicking. And then like I realized, I really love strategy games, so then I discovered this one, the StarCraft thing. It was like, oh cool, it's space, and I love sci-fi, and then it's like Age of Empires, and then I just started playing all these games, and then like we got into Counter-Strike when it was a mod before 1.6. I'm talking about even before that. And I remember all my friends like finding like different mods for Half-Life, and we'd all play online, and like they got really. I was always horrible, but it was like then we got into shooters, and this is before Halo, and it was like there was a lull period between like Doom, like original Doom, Doom and Halo, and like that's where Half-Life came in. It was like a slightly slower shooter, but not like a Tom Clancy slow, and and then I would just play all these online games, and then there's like the birth of the MMOs, and I'm talking about even before WoW. I was playing Dark Age of Camelot with my crew, and that's another where it was like I had this dial-up modem, and we would just all play these online games, and like all my friends played it. And then it was also great because my best friend like went to a different school district, so I only got to see him on holidays, so we could play.
It was a way of you staying in touch.
Oh, absolutely. And like we're guys, so we're not gonna be on the phone, like we're not doing that shit, like so. But then I remember playing like Phantasy Star Online on my Dreamcast. I remember I figured out how to get the modem to work on my Dreamcast, which was my favorite console to this day.
I never got Dreamcast.
Oh, I loved it. It was ahead of its time. Because, there were people who got the Dreamcast, people who got the PlayStation 2. I got Dreamcast.
PS2 over here.
I was a Sonic kid. I was a Sega kid. And I remember my friends were playing Phantasy Star Online, and I was like, cool. And then I figured out how to get the modem to work so we could all play online on a console. Now, in 2001, 2002, this was
It's not the same as it is now.
Nobody was doing this. Like,
it's not
and I was like in PC, like internet culture at the time. So we, I was on, message boards and like all this other stuff. We were joining clans and like, doing all that stuff. And then, there's the modern birth of like the modern video game era now. But like that was it was a great outlet for me to be able to hang out with the crew because they were all into it. I wasn't very good, but it was just nice to be able to just have them, we all take this for granted now, PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, they all have friend lists. But at the time, like this was revolutionary. I remember like doing Dark Age of Camelot, which was like a major MMO. Like EverQuest was like the first big MMO, or Ultima Online was. But then Dark Age of Camelot kind of made it more accessible, and then WoW came out and fucking blew up the world. And and then this, we all played those religiously. I think my crew was still playing WoW. I don't because I no. But yeah, so that was what always helped me, like stay connected to my friends, and that still sticks with me today. Even now, like my best friend will come by and like we still do the single player game, and we'll just swap the controller.
It's funny. I never did that with my friends. It was just like we talk about our shared experiences, but we never play the same game in the same moment. Basically.
Yeah, we would. There was always fighting games and racing games. We'd always do that stuff. But then, like as we got older, me and him, what we would do is just find a game, and then like, all right, you play until you die, then we swap, and then we just go back and forth. We did that with Bloodborne. We did that with actually all the Souls games. We did that, just you name it. That's what we did. That was Now it's like, my console of choice is still PlayStation because I'm just so invested in that console at this point. It's like
because
I'm a hybrid. I play everything.
You're a hybrid, but apparently it's a big thing still that the PC master race versus the console.
It blows my mind that that's still a thing. It's not as heavy as it used to be, but it's first off. So the thing is with like PCs is that's where you're going to get the best product because the computers are going to be always like the graphics cards on a computer is always going to be more powerful than the console.
It'll look the best.
It always looked the best, but then there's like perks, like things like you never have to worry about backwards compatibility. The game you buy now, Steam makes it really easy. Epic Game Store, first-person shooters are always going to be better on a mouse and keyboard, and I play both. It's like the thing is like people when Halo was coming out, everyone's like, holy shit! But it's like all the PC gamers were like, we've had this type of game for fucking years now. Like this is not new. Like it's revolutionary for a console, but not for not for PC gamers, man. They're like, we've been rocking Team Fortress 2 for a while now. like, this is nothing, Yeah, no, that's still a thing, but I get why. And honestly, Twitch has not helped that at all.
Why can't we be friends?
I mean, it's gotten better. I think the newer generations don't really.
What I find interesting is like you will see exclusive PC gamers look at console games, like the really good ones, like God of War and Ghost of Tsushima. I'm like, these games look so fucking good.
Yeah, we have a friend that's.
I'll wait until it's on PC.
Well, it's also too what you're buying, right? So it's like this shit ain't cheap, man. Like, that's an expensive.
No, the video games now are.
I mean, a decent gaming rig is you're gonna spend $1,500 on one. I mean, a console is gonna cost you $500-600 if you can find one.
Exactly.
And then also too with like PC gaming, the games are cheaper.
Yeah.
There they go on sale. You can also do some weird stuff to kind of get them for free. You know, not that I advocate for that now. You shouldn't. Pay the developers so they make more games.
Man. It's like with music. Like,
well, we're not broke people anymore. We're not broke 60. Like, I get, like, if you're 16 years old, rip a CD, dude. Like, you ain't paying for that shit.
Yeah.
But if you're like a 22-year-old with like a part-time, like, get a job.
If you're getting a paycheck, you have the money to buy what you want.
Yeah, save up for, support the people that make the thing you like.
Yeah, but I'm very similar to you. The game that had the most impact on me was Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
That just opened not only just to RPGs, but video games as a storytelling device. Yeah. Not just shooters, fighting games. Yeah. I think I got into the Tomb Raiders shortly after I played FF7. That really was like PlayStation, the console, and Final Fantasy VII, the game. Those were like the two ones that really, when you have an older sibling, obviously you'll backseat game and then you play with them and blah, blah, blah. And then by myself, that's when I started with PS games, Final Fantasy VII. That's when I started to really evolve. And I think my game preference of choice is actually like single player, adventure, narrative driven, like God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, those type of games.
Well, those are big AAA beast of games.
Yeah.
I mean,
but even the previous, like the Metal Gears when they came out.
Oh yeah,
the first one in PS, which was mind blowing. The graphics are so shitty when you look back.
But when you watch
but the story itself is like so badass and so cool. Really game changing. I'll tell anyone like the Metal Gear series.
Yeah, even now with the Metal Gear Solid, he was Kojima was doing things nobody even now. I mean, his most recent game I wasn't a fan of, but
Death Stranding, you mean?
Yeah, Death Stranding, and I beat it, so I can have an opinion.
You don't want to be an Amazon delivery guy?
It's like. Yeah, but like I know I get it, but then there's then there are like little gems that cost like $5, and you're like, this is like how the hell? Like, I mean, like remember, like it's a short little one-time play. It's a narrative. Like you don't really play much, but you just tell a story through it. Like Firewatch was one of them.
I remember I played Firewatch. That was a good.
And that was a clever story. Like it's like it makes you like.
I totally thought that Angelina Jolie movie that came out, she's like a Firewatch tower.
Oh, you thought?
I thought that was a adaptation of the game, and I was like,
it's
sorry.
Well, Firewatch, that's a real job. Like that's a real.
That's what I mean.
Job.
That's what I mean. I thought they were doing a play on the game.
No.
No, like indie games too. You'll find hidden gems like The Witness, the puzzle game. Have you ever played that?
Yes, I have.
Love that game.
I knew someone who didn't know about the secondary puzzles in the sky. He beat the whole thing, didn't even realize.
It took me a while to figure that out.
I remember at work, I was like,
because I finished it and I was like, no, there's definitely more in this
He said
game.
the same thing. He was like,
there's more.
He was like, I don't get it. Like, it was okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I think you're missing something. And I showed him a clip of like someone who realizes it and they just look at the sky and you're like, are you fucking kidding me? I missed all that. I'm like, yeah, you may want to go back. Even tons of indie games, which is a game I recommend for you. So for your game homework, is a game called Hotline Miami.
Hotline Miami. What is this game?
Hotline Miami.
Hotline Miami?
Yes.
What is this, like some Grand Theft Auto shit?
No. It is a shooter. It is a top-down analog stick shooter with one of the best soundtracks in a video game.
Hotline
Miami. I will send it to you. It is like it's on everything. You can get it for Switch, PlayStation, Steam. It's okay. So this is a slightly older game. It came out. Let me find. I think it came out in 2013. Yeah, it's a top-down shooter. It's really good. I promise you can put. Okay, so this game you need a controller for. It's a dual stick shooter. Means you use both. So one stick is for aiming, one is for looking.
Yeah.
It is brilliant, this game.
The last shooter game that I played that was like really wild and crazy was, you ever play Super Hot?
Yes, Super Hot's
That
really
was
good.
fucking cool.
Super
Where
Hot
you
is
like
really
get to
good.
stop time.
Yep.
And then like grab stuff in midair. Oh, dude, that was lots of fun.
Let me see if Hotline Miami is on the PlayStation.
Why do
at
I
least
think?
on the
Why do I
PS5.
think of that Drake song when you say that?
Not too
All I
far.
want is a hotline bling.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I'll send you a link to this.
Yeah, send me a link.
The collection's $20. It's amazing. Like, it is like it's an indie game. It's old. I mean, I know. I mean, they've made a million
I
different
gotta
types
say,
of this game.
video game soundtracks, they come out with bangers. Some of these.
Yeah, so it's like a mix of like a puzzle game and a shooter.
Okay.
So essentially, your character's a hitman, and you're like, all right, you got to go in this room, and it's all like top down pixel. It's all pixels. All right, it's all pixelated stuff.
Pixel dead.
Essentially that, and like the point is like, all right, there's like 20 guys in this in this house. You have to navigate the house, but it's like, all right, that guy has a bat, so you have to kill him before this guy gets to you, and you have like special powers, and it's a little hard to describe.
Not like Hitman.
No, not at that level.
Not at that level.
Which is also an amazing game if you haven't played those.
Oh yeah, I played Hitman. That's what I'm thinking of. Like
It's pseudo. Where it's very fast. The loads are instant. Like it's very quick because like you die. It's like all right. Essentially you just have to clear the house, but you get certain masks and certain abilities. You can change things. But it was a little indie game that blew up. I think it was winning BAFTAs or Emmy or Grammys for music. Like it's really good.
How long did it take you to beat it?
I beat the first one in a day. The second one is really hard to the point where people hate it. And it
Why?
took,
Because it's like
it
the
took me
puzzles
and
are
my
hard?
best friend probably a day and a half to beat it of just like sitting there. But here's the thing: playing the first one in his basement, and the soundtrack's just blaring, and we're just like in it. We're just like, fuck this level, we can't get past it. His little brother walks in, he's like, "What are you listening to?" and he just sat down. He's like, "This is amazing. What are we watching?" And it was just so good. It's so good. Maybe after this podcast, I'll show you a level. It's I can't say much more. It's like one of my favorite indie games of all time.
And when did it come out?
2013.
Oh, okay.
But it's come out on everything. This thing will run on anything.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll get you, I'll show you that.
You've never let me down with video game recommendations
trust me.
before.
That's- For like indie games, it's like one of those, like I always tell people, like anyone can like
I
want
to go back to playing Control.
Control, anything that studio makes, I will play. They did Max Payne, which is one of my favorite action games of all time. I had Bullet Time before anyone was doing Bullet Time. Max Payne, and then Max Payne 2 is even amazing. Max Payne 3, but it's no Max Payne 2. But yeah, those type of games, they don't, they're not making much of those anymore. Right now, currently, I think my game that I'm playing a lot now. Trying to think, Battlefield, I've always played all the Battlefields. The newest one, I know everyone hates, and I'm not a big fan of it either, but the Season 2 and Season 3 updates came out, and they're talking about course-correcting a lot of things. They went into like the realm of like hero shooter, where with Battlefield, it's like these big, it's a first-person shooter where but it's
I've
like,
seen gameplay,
but it's like a war playground. You're not the hero, you're Soldier B.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just a grunt in the war.
Yeah.
But this one, they kind of started adding like what they do with Siege, where like you have like these hero abilities, and like people were like, no, this is not. Yeah, that may work for like COD and Tom Clancy games, but not Battlefield fans. So they're like, but they literally pulled the "we hear you," and like decided, all right, Season 3, we're fixing the maps and we're kind of course correcting it.
What's the studio?
DICE.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're doing that. I also unfortunately play Fortnite. I do play Fortnite.
Listen, a lot of
For the record, I got into it because I was playing with my nephew.
how many dads play with their kids?
That's
with
essentially
Fortnite?
how it started. Was my nephew?
Or you play with your nephews?
That's what it was. He really he wanted to play at my house one day, and he was just bored. I'm like, all right, you can play Fortnite on my console.
Yeah,
and he got into it, and I was
I
like,
didn't judge you, man.
no, hold on. I'm just saying, that's how it started, and then I just started playing without him. And then, but I also like all the battle royales. I played them all, but this one was it's easy, it's brainless. It also had the flying Nimbus right now that I maybe.
I heard that Goku's in here. You could do the Kamehameha.
I may have spent $10.
Oh no, Dan!
It was the flying Nimbus.
You could say no, the flying Nimbus, right?
Bro, I tried to get the power pole, but no, I got the flying Nimbus. So, don't you judge me.
So So how does Fortnite get the deals to acquire the licenses to have?
They
all
just
these
print.
characters?
I mean, they have a lot of money, and it's eyeballs on the game. It's one of the most popular games in the world.
They've had Spider-Man in Fortnite. They've had
Star Wars.
They've
had Drake. I think Lady Gaga's about to do a virtual concert in there.
So
It's because it's a mega hit.
That's crazy, man.
I mean, my nephew had to
who
get
would have
banned
thought, too?
from it.
Because wasn't there a time where like people thought Fortnite's dead, no one's playing Fortnite?
Well, that's the thing is Fortnite comes out and it's like a building shooter game and it's okay. It's not bombing. Like it didn't bomb. It did okay. But then PUBG comes out and people in the scene I was waiting for PUBG to come out because I was playing that mod from Arma. I was playing the Arma mod of that. And I'm like,
Christ.
this is fucking awesome. And then they're like, oh, the guy who came up with the mods, like whose name is Player Unknown, he's like, oh yeah, I'm making like a full-fledged release of this. And I remember one of my buddies who is big into like military shooters, me and him both, like before anyone, like not to be that, before anyone knew it, we knew it was good. We were like, no, this is gonna be the biggest fucking game when it comes out. It's a battle royale shooter. No one's doing this. Modders are doing this, but no one. And then it comes out, it blows up the fucking world. And then Epic totally does like we're getting into it too, and like retrofits their game to make it a battle royale, and it blows up. And I know why, because it's the art style, it's all the goofy like add-ons, the skins and stuff. And then that's it snowballs.
It looks like a child's game.
Yeah, and it's like there's like the building,
PUBG's more gritty and more.
Yeah, and it's like I've played all the battle royales. I think my favorites would probably be Fortnite and I'm gonna say probably PUBG. But I've placed on all of them. Like this isn't like I play for now. Like I've gotten first place consistently on all of them. Like I have a comfortable amount of hours.
It's a combination of skill, sometimes a little luck.
I like that it's luck and skill because if you suck, there's still a chance.
Do good in the game.
Yeah, you can get lucky.
Feel like a total idiot.
Exactly. So and like with like a fighting game, you're always gonna lose against someone who knows more than you.
But fucking hackers. Talk about the biggest turnoff in a video game.
No, there you go. That'll break any game.
Yeah, it's like when you think you're doing well and you get shot through walls, and it's just like,
oh, dude,
it's soul sucking. It's soul sucking.
I was playing shooters in the early 2000s when wall hacks were like just invented and there was no way to block them and all that crap. But
garbage, man.
But then like the game, then there's always like two games I always keep installed on my computer. It's always Skyrim because or just not just Skyrim, any Elder Scroll. The current Elder Scroll at the time is like my go-to. I find you're either a Fallout guy or an Elder Scrolls guy. And then there's also
So do you like hate Fallout people?
I don't hate Fallout people. I unfortunately, it's one of those things. I wish I played Fallout before I got into Elder Scrolls because I think I would have really liked Fallout more.
Interesting.
But I just like Elder Scrolls stuff. And I play D&D, bro. It's pretty much digital D&D. But also, I always keep the current Total War installed at all times. Now that hits every fucking history nerds like
that. Just
check mark by every box. It just clicks.
It's juiced up.
I mean, this one. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Warhammer ones because they're fantasy, and then I like more of the historical ones.
The historical ones, yeah.
I think when I discovered them when I was playing Rome Total War, the first one, and I literally think my summer disappeared.
Total pivot. Sorry, but I just thought of it. You probably are the man in Risk. Are you good at Risk?
It is my favorite board game.
You're probably really good at Risk.
I'm really good at Risk.
All right, we should play Risk one time.
Good luck, bro.
I just to get smashed, but
so here's the. So I have so listeners, I'm that geek in the Geek Forest, all right? I play D&D, I love science fiction, I read an absurd amount, I love history, I play tons of video games, I own Pokemon cards somewhere. I mean, I have miniature collections. I'm into 40K, you name it, I'm into it. I don't like board games.
You don't like board games?
But here's what I don't like. I don't like
what kind of board?
Hang on, that's where I'm getting to. Is I don't like modern board games. I think they're fundamentally flawed.
Okay. Give me an example.
So I love Risk is my favorite board game.
Yeah.
Mine is chess.
I grew up playing Risk.
Chess and Risk are my two favorite board games. Chess, it's chess. Risk, I love. And then there's a variant of it called Risk Europe that I even love even more. More rules. But my problem with modern board games now, and I'm not talking about Settlers Catan or Carcassonne, I'm not talking about those, or like Ticket to Ride. Those I think are brilliant games. I don't like the Gloomhavens, the Twilight Imperiums, all those like mega board games. I have a problem with if it takes 8 hours to play, or not even 8, if it takes 2 hours to really learn how to play the game.
The setup, yeah.
The problem with it is a board game should be quick to learn, hard to master, and just fun.
Yeah.
With replayability.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And because here's the problem with board games. You play them once or twice, and that's kind of it.
And then it sits in your shelf.
Because you're always teaching someone new to play. So, and that's not the problem. The problem is the rules. So it's like, I've always wanted to play Twilight Imperium, but it's a $120 board game. It takes 8 hours
that
to
much?
beat. It takes like 8 hours to play, and you need 6 people to play it.
Well, we're definitely not having.
It's a big, it's essentially just a big galactic space like game with like a lot of politics, a lot of battles. So it's like, it's all that, but it's like, and it's a famous game. Like it's not a bad game, but that's the problem is that these games
8 hours to finish.
Now
one
I've had
session?
risk games that take. I've had a 6-hour risk game.
But that's risk. Like I've definitely had,
and that's fine.
Yeah.
But the thing is I can explain the rules of risk in 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you'll get it after 2 turns.
Yeah.
And I think that's where modern board games fail. Not all of them, but the big ones everyone loves in board game scene. Everyone likes Settlers of Catan, right? Like it's like a popular game. It's a good, easy game everyone can play.
So do you think that they're making the games more complex, more
they have
rules
to.
heavy, just so you could play longer?
No, I think
And justify the price tag too?
Not really. I think. Well, justifying the price tag, I think, is like more because they're putting a lot of stuff into the board games, like materials. My problem with them is that where I'm getting at is I think it just naturally that's where it evolves to complexity, right?
Yeah.
Risk is made.
Yeah.
Monopoly is made. So you're not going to make a clone of these. You have to add more to it.
Kind of do your own thing.
So
or
people loved Risk, and then someone made Allies and Axis. Which is a souped up type of that game where it's more rules, and then it's like then you have like the wargaming community, which I really like the wargaming community. That whole genre. My only problem is I just don't have the time to build all those fucking minis, or paint them or do any of that stuff.
Yeah,
but I love
it's a commitment.
I
It is a
love
commitment.
that system. See, that's something I like. Like, all right, I like the idea of like you went out and invested in like you made your army. You decided, say with 40K, right? You really dug the space orcs.
Yeah.
So you went in and you spent like $200-300 on a whole set. I do the same. I get into Space Marines. We have our armies.
Yeah.
The game has fucking textbooks of rules. I know this sounds like it's a contradiction of what I just said. but if there's something not constricting about it. Like it's loose. Like it's like, all right, I have a table. I set up the battle. Go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then to me, that seems more like game. It's just a game right there. It's a big strategy.
Yeah. Because it's almost like more rewarding if like you said, you build your own army, you put the work into it. If you had time, you painted it, or even if you didn't paint it, it's yours. And now you find another buddy has the same thing, and now the two of you are kind of like,
I contribute that to like when Pokemon cards and Magic.
Exactly. I was just getting to that. Like card games.
See,
is
like
very similar
Pokemon
thing.
and like Pokemon TCG and Magic, super complex games, quick to teach, and it's not like constricted. Like it's just you're both at a table, you got your decks, you go.
Yeah.
Right. With like a big Gloomhaven, you got all these miniatures, you got this map, you got these books. I've never been a big fan of when I watch like tutorials on like a board game that I may be interested in. Like, and now you have your massive reference book. All right, I'm out. Like, and this is someone who owns every D&D module. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay.
Well, the difference in D&D, like their rules are there, but they're more guidelines.
They can be broken.
They can be broken.
Whereas these board games, it's just
To the T
My
almost.
problem with like the big board games is like, all right, so
If they don't follow the structure, then
all right, I'm hosting a game night. Everyone comes over. We got like 5-6 people. We're gonna play this game. It's gonna take like 3 hours, and everyone's like, okay, that's fine. We're into it, right? But you're gonna spend half your time explaining the board game to
that
people.
loses a lot of people. Yeah.
And it's like, and then it kind of just like, okay. I mean, our buddy Todd is that. He's a big board game guy, and I actually love playing board games with him because he also brings like the type of games that I would like.
Yeah.
But I always find, I feel bad for Todd, is that he spends half his time explaining
Saying
the
the
game to
rules,
us.
yeah.
And I'm like, how is this fun for him? But then the worst part is, it's like,
Well, it's a two-way thing. It's like not only is it exhausting for him.
then I'm
but it's
stressed out trying to
you're trying to listen and make sure you get all the rules, because if you fuck up, then you're gonna hold up the game.
Yes.
Right? You're gonna hold up the game.
Yep.
And yeah, so it's
and then
it's tough.
So that's how the problem is then it's like the odds of me playing this board game again is like nil. Where like with Magic, Pokemon, Warhammer, D&D, those games require certain, not so like a buy-in, but if you're interested in that and you like it, you're in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like if I played, like Twilight Imperium and I loved it, the odds of me being able to get another group together to play
That's
that
the
fucking
thing,
game
too.
is a lot harder.
That's the thing too. You gotta have a game that you're gonna have a crew to be able to play with.
Yeah,
right?
so
it's as simple as that.
So if I got when I was like deep into Magic, I was playing it, and then it's like great, but there's something if you're already if you're already playing Magic, like it's not hard to find someone to play. But like a board game and that's one thing that always killed me with Risk is that it's not 2-player. Yeah, I mean it can be, but it's not as fun. It's
Yeah, I usually played with 4 people.
It's minimum
yeah.
3, minimum
Yeah,
3 to
3
4.
to 4.
Usually you want 4.
You want
They say you could do it with 3, but you should do it with 4.
Yeah, yeah.
Risk, yeah. So like Risk.
Two-player Risk, interessante.
Yeah, it's not as fun as you think. It sucks, but yeah. So that's kind of my thing with modern board games is that they're. It's like they're cool, but I'm like they're not. Really
You're not
my
dying
thing.
to play it again,
Nah,
right?
not at all.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Because that's the big thing too. Not just in board games, but in video games too. Like you want to be able to have replayability in them. You know, like I'll be itching to play even the 1-player adventure games like Ghost of Tsushima and God of War. Like I will play those again. I spent $60 on them. I would hope I'd want to play them again. But they're also very memorable and well made. And
and those take like hundreds of people to develop and all that other stuff.
And
it's,
you can tell they put the work into it too. You know. So speaking of which, did you pre-order the new God of War yet?
I didn't pre-order it, but I am getting it. I'm actually going to replay it next month. I'm going to try to.
Because it comes out in November.
So I'm going to try to replay it.
Good call.
Actually, my
replay
buddy
it
is
with you.
actually replaying all of them. He's going from the old school.
The old school,
Because he's like, it's been so long since I played them. He's like, they still
I'm
hold
pretty
up.
sure
They're
there was
fun.
one that was on PSP, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
had it. I
Dude.
had it. Chains of Olympus, man. That was a great
Chains
one.
of Olympus. I remember that one.
There's 2 for the PlayStation.
It was
PSP.
right.
Yeah. Chains of Olympus and
what was the other one
I
called?
forget what the other one was called.
Something with Fates? No, I'm thinking of another one.
Probably.
What was the other one? But anyway, yeah, no. I talk about a game that to me in the past, let's say 5 years. That's my favorite game in the past 5 years.
Oh yeah, easily.
God of War.
I knew people who were not into games playing that game.
Yeah.
I remember my old boss at my old job. He figured out how to use remote play so he could play God of War at the office. Do you know how hard it is to manage a team where your boss,
That's actually kind of boss.
where your
lack of a
boss
better
is
word.
playing a console, and I'm like, guys, you can watch YouTube and like that shit, but I'm drawing the line of video games, and like there's there's my boss like play. I'm like, god damn it, dude, like.
That's hilarious. But hey, when you want to play, man. That was a AAA game in every aspect of it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm excited for the sequel. But no, send me the link for
Yeah, I'll
Hotline
show you.
Miami.
I'll show you how.
yeah, after
I'll
that.
show you in a
Because
little bit.
obviously the listeners can't. They can watch a YouTube.
And
video.
something tells me, that if you don't know this game, you should. It's one of the best indie games ever made. It's right up there with like
Fun.
Spelunky and all
Yeah.
these other big ones. But
No, you've never stirred me wrong. You've basically recommended every game I've played for the past 3
I
years.
remember the
think.
day you hit me up and you were like, all right, because you kind of went through like a dry spell, and then you're like, oh, bro, I just got a PS4. I'm like, okay. And I just sent you a list. I'm like,
Also, PC games. Like you told me, okay, you gotta play Portal. You gotta
oh, I
play,
remember when we
like,
hooked you up with a PC because like me and Todd were like
the original Tomb Raider.
because you got deep into Overwatch on the console, and we're like,
Yeah.
dude, you got to get this on the PC.
Yeah.
And we hooked you up with a gaming console,
Yeah.
a gaming PC.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, buddy, here are that you got to play.
yeah.
You have to like aggressively catch up.
Yeah.
Here are these games that you must play.
Yeah. And no complaints on any game.
Yeah, that's
Except maybe Dark Souls, but that's enough.
Dark. Well, here's the thing with Dark
But
Souls.
because I think I was at a disadvantage too because I hadn't played
Those
the
games
original
suck.
one.
They just fucking suck. I
they're-
played them all. I beat them all. And
You
it's-
hate play them. Is
No,
that a
that's
thing?
exactly that's
that a thing?
exactly
Like,
what
you
you
hate
do. Even the designer of the game, he even said, "Oh, I don't like hard games. I only."
Miyazaki.
But yeah, but he's like, this is what he's. I think I'm paraphrasing, but essentially he's like, I don't like hard games. I don't like to play hard games, but I like to watch people get angry at my
he
game.
likes people watch suffer. Yeah.
He literally, and I'm like, you fucking masochist, son of a bitch.
And when you play those
if you
games,
didn't make games so good, I'd kill
yeah,
you.
if you didn't, and it's not because like the level design, the creatures, and like the abilities, all that's fun and great. It's just that there are just frustrating moments
Yep.
in the gameplay that you just like.
Very.
Fuck this shit, and like the original Dark Souls, they don't have save points, so if you fuck up, you gotta go all the way back to
Yep.
and it's like I hate everything.
It's old school Castlevania.
Yeah,
It reminded me very much of Symphony of the Night because that's one of my favorite games, and that's pretty much the modern version of a Castlevania,
Yeah.
like a Metroidvania. Essentially, is what that is. It's brutal. It sucks.
it sucks. But you for some reason the allure of the challenge of like fuck this level, fuck this boss, I want to beat it.
Yeah.
You still go. It's like a.
But then here's the thing: the greatest high is when you.
That's what I mean.
beat
Like
that
when you do
boss.
it, you're like, goddamn fuck, yeah, I did it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they're like I remember when I was playing Bloodborne for the first time, and then like you get stuck on the first hard boss you get stuck on is the Bloodstar.
You know what's
beast.
funny? I've heard of Bloodborne is even though the gameplay is what it is, there's actually a really good story.
They all have really good stories. It's just they're very cryptic.
They're cryptic. Exactly. They're like within messages.
It's dark.
Within,
It's
subtle,
grimdark. It's full-fledged grimdark.
Yeah.
I mean, the worlds that guy made is amazing. But yeah, there's like a boss. So they kind of fuck you in Bloodborne is you get like you go through like 2 or 3 bosses and you're kind of like, okay, I'm doing okay, and then they throw like the fuck out like a really hard boss at you, and it took me forever to beat this, and I suck at those games, so it takes me even longer. And I remember I recorded it the day when I finally beat this fucking thing, and I was like, yeah, you motherfucker, yeah, what, and this is me doing that, and I'm just like
Dan raging.
I
Oh,
totally
man, where's the
raged,
footage?
and I was like, I scared the dog, she's running away. Like it was interesting, but but like I said, I think your homework for before next session.
I'll play. Yeah, I'm down to play.
We'll get you some
game.
Hotline Miami, and then we're definitely gonna get you into Russian Doll. I would definitely want to see your take on season 1 of it.
And you said I didn't have to watch season 2, so.
No, so if you want to watch season 2, go ahead. But definitely, I would recommend that's your homework, and then we can actually really talk about it.
Very cool, man. Very cool, man.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, I think we hit the video game bug, so to speak, pun intended.
Now let's go. So I think now we're gonna go and play some Hotline Miami. Now.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next time. Thanks for listening, as always. Yeah, catch you later.
Guys, take it easy.
Peace.